it's Ian the Off Kilter Crafter.
And I'm Becca.
And spoiler alert, in this episode, we're diving into the world of AI. So if you're worried about robots taking over your fabric stash, consider this your warning. Straight from ChatGPT.
Which is appropriate.
Right.
AI, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Have no idea where this conversation's going to take us.
I know, it's going to be an interesting one today.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's kind of AI in a nutshell at the moment, at least. It feels like we don't quite know where AI is going to... Well, we'll talk about that in a little while.
They're going to rise up and take over the world.
Or at least our fabric stash.
Yeah, well, that's what
like,
ChatGPT said. So
we'll go ahead and kick things off by talking about our quilts on our lap. If you are listening to us on the podcasting apps, feel free to come over to the YouTube video and check out what we have on our laps today. We're going to do our best to describe them, but feel free to come on over to the YouTube video so you can see it. I have, I've always gone first, but I'm going to go first again, I feel like.
Diva.
I am. I have a quilt on my lap that is unfinished. In fact, we both ended up inadvertently picking up quilts that are unfinished.
Listen, in the camera lens, mine just looks like I have a white binding.
That's true. I'm looking at it on the screen. It does look like it has a white binding.
And I'm kind of thinking maybe I want white binding now.
Oh, okay. Well,
anyway, continue.
Anyways. So on my lap, I have, of course, some Tula Pink fabric. It is from Curiouser and Curiouser, and I designed this quilt myself and came up with the whole design motif. I kind of wanted to tell the story of the Red Queen. I'm calling this one the Red Queen's Rose Garden, because it's got the Red Queen up here, and down on the bottom where you can't see, Alice is in the other corner, and then we have the Cheshire Cat hiding in the quilt as well. So we have several different kind of characters hiding amongst the roses of the Red Queen's Rose Garden. It's a pretty fun quilt, and I need to finish binding it because I'm entering it into the North Texas Quilt Festival.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, last week when we did a spoiler alert, you told me I won a ribbon.
I did.
This week's spoiler alert is a little bit of a letdown.
I know. Sorry, no ribbons this time.
So on my lap, I have got a friendship quilt. This was the result of a block swap that I did with my friends at my Alabama retreat that I go to every year in July. A few years ago, we all gave our own color palette and put it out there. And you were responsible for making the same block in everybody's color palette so that they could have a quilt that met their color palettes.
Oh.
Surprise! I got purples and teals and greens. I was like purples and blues, and some folks like got it spot on. They're like, "Oh, I know you," and then others were like, "Oh, this is purple and blue," and I'm like, "Yeah, but
not my purple,
purple and blue, but it does fit into the quilt."
Yeah.
So, you know, when you're working with a quilt, well, I will also say everybody also pulled batiks, which was really nice because I love batiks, and I know not everybody likes to work with them. I know.
You like batiks?
I know, Ian. Revelation. I know.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. So anyway, I got all the blocks a few years ago, and they kind of sat in my studio unfinished for a long period of time. There weren't enough to do a traditional quilt layout. I think I had like 13 blocks or something. Maybe it was 15. I don't remember. No, it was 14. I remember now. I have a memory. Anyway, I needed to round it out. And so I ended up doing a 4x4 configuration, which meant I needed to make 2 more blocks to get to the total of 16. I wasn't sure how I was going to put them together, but when I went to retreat in July of 2024, I brought the blocks with me. I picked up some fabric from a local quilt shop. So all of this kind of came from Huntsville area. And I sewed them all together. I just laid out the 12 blocks, and I did a sashing, and then I did an inner border and an outer border. And once I got Pro Stitcher up and running, guess what? It got to get quilted. I'm really excited about it because it has on the back, Minky!
Mine doesn't have Minky. It just has the Tula Pink backing, which is really pretty. Oh,
yeah,
it especially looks pretty as I'm looking at it in the preview in front of us. It looks really pretty. Yeah. But I I need to finish this one because, like I said, I've entered this one into competition. I'm really proud of this one because I designed this one myself, all by myself.
All by myself.
Okay.
Don't wanna be. Oh man, we're gonna get demonetized.
No,
we're gonna get kicked off the podcast
oh my
platforms.
gosh, everyone's gonna be like, unsubscribe.
Well,
Anywho.
whatever. Yeah, you get what you get, and you don't pitch a fit.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
All right.
And
So-
if it was AI singing, it would be all over the place with some of the
listen,
words.
I had it in my head. It may not have come out of my mouth, but it was in my head.
Mm.
All right.
Yep.
So let's talk about the topic because we've probably spent 35 minutes talking about stupid things.
Quilts are not stupid.
No, but my rambling can be.
So AI, this is, a very relevant topic right now because AI seems to be incredibly, I don't want to say popular, but
You're gonna be
it's
popular.
toss leg. there- AI is really, I'm using it a lot more. I'm using it a lot more. A lot of companies are using it a lot more. It's popping up in every imaginable section of my life right now, our lives, everybody's lives right now. So I thought this would be a good topic to talk about. And I know that, well, there's some controversy with AI in that.
What?
I know. In that, let's start off with point A.
Mm-hmm.
And that is when you create a quilt to enter a quilt show, you have to provide some sort of source. Unless you made that quilt 100% yourself, you have to provide a source. So if I used a pattern, I would have to list out the pattern. If I used an image, I would have to cite my source.
Yes.
That I used an image. If I used a painting, if I used an X, Y, Z, whatever it is, I need to cite that source. But with AI, if I generate a quilt top design in AI, how do I cite that source?
Good question. Don't know.
Well, and that's the thing.
ChatGPT did it.
Right, exactly. And then it goes into, well, ChatGPT uses, I think I said B, ChatGPT. I always do that wrong. I always say ChatGPT instead of ChatGPT.
I didn't catch it if it makes you feel any better.
It does make me feel better. But where did the AI scrape its information from? Because AI doesn't just magically create everything. It has to have a source that it bases things off of. So how do we get to that source?
Yeah. I don't know. I just know I can pull it up and say, hey, ChatGPT, I have chicken and cream and broth. What can I make? And then I have a wonderful crock pot recipe.
Yeah, but true. And a lot of times when I'm working on the podcast, I'll actually use it to help me generate the descriptions.
Yeah.
So that way it doesn't sound boring. Like, hi, in this episode, we talk about subject.
Well, let's talk a little bit. I want to tie these two universes together, and perhaps talking just about AI and quilting. Maybe that's like the future of where we're going.
Sure.
But another area that I would like to talk a little bit about is technology in quilting, like making it even bigger, right?
Yeah.
So the future of technology, I think, does include some form of AI, and it'd be interesting to see what that plays out as. But I feel like the quilting world lags behind modern tech
Sure.
by a considerable number of
Sure.
years. So with AI being on the cusp, it being new and people diving into it, I think maybe as content creators, we might be more aware of it. And
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a few quilters out there who, like myself, are a little techie and have already started diving into the world of ChatGPT. But by and large, I would wager most quilters probably aren't touching it. And if they are, I wonder if they're using it to help improve their craft.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
a really good question, especially because a lot of times you can use it to figure out how much binding you need, how many square inches of, I don't know. There's a lot of different uses for it in figuring out measurements and links and stuff like that.
All right, so I'm gonna admit something. So I'm doing a 2025 quilt along on my channel. On the second Saturday of every month, I drop a video, and it has a free pattern that you can download from my website. And I take a block, and it's not a custom block. These are traditional blocks that everybody has tutorials on. But what makes mine unique is the pattern that I'm giving you has very clear and concise cutting instructions and step-by-step details for how to put that block together in 4 different sizes. So I'm giving you a 3-inch, a 6-inch, a 9-inch, and a 12-inch. And at the end of the year, we'll put all those blocks together into a quilt. And it's a lot of fun to see everybody putting their quilts together or their blocks together. The confession that I have is when I started this, I was like, the first block's going to be a churn dash. Hey, ChatGPT, tell me how to put a churn dash together. Would you believe it couldn't?
Really?
It got it wrong. I had to actually go back and fix it. So in a churn dash, you know that you have a center fabric in the middle. Look, hey,
you got one right there.
Right here. So you have 3 fabrics. Well, technically 4 in this one. You have 4 fabrics represented, but in mine, I just wanted to have 3, right? So I wanted to have a focal print. I wanted to have these. And then this was going to be, maybe I did do 4. I can't remember. Either way, it could not figure out that these half square triangle units were the result of putting 2 fabrics together, drawing a line, stitching on either side of the line, and then cutting down the middle and getting 2 sets. And when you did that, it was taking into account the squared size, but it wasn't sizing it up, which was really giving you the cutting instructions for a stitch and flip half square triangle. So if you were trying to make a 3-inch squared half square triangle, it was telling you to pull 2 3-inch pieces of fabric. Well, you're going to lose the seam allowance. And by the time you draw on the line, you do your sewing and you trim it up or you cut it apart, it's at best 2.5. So I spent probably an entire weekend feeding in corrections into ChatGPT and telling it, no, this is what the formula is. No, this is what you need to do. No, it's this. And I just eventually got frustrated. I was like, listen, it's going to take me less time to just type it up myself. So I did it on my own. I never did get to the point where it was able to give me correct, accurate cutting instructions.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Because I know, so I would like at some point to become a prompt expert. Like that is a goal of mine, is to work on maybe even getting a certification of some type that is a prompt engineer.
What is a prompt expert? I don't know what that is.
So it's a prompt expert or engineer is someone that is able to figure out the most effective way to prompt ChatGPT to give us the response that we're looking for. And Shelby, I'm trying, Mav Geek, if you hang out with me on my live streams, Shelby had a great explanation, and I'm trying to remember what her explanation was, but she kind of described it as being the librarian, and the librarian knows where you need to look in the library and what questions you need to ask in order to get the result that you're looking for.
So I think we need to take this another step back.
Okay.
Because I know our audience, and some of them out there are preaching the ChatGPT. They're going, yes. Yep. But then there are other out there going, how do you spell ChatGPT? So let's dial it back for a second.
Yep.
So we're not leaving people behind.
Absolutely.
ChatGPT is a technology online that you can get to. You go to chatgpt.com. And the thing that's unique about it that I like is you can brain dump your thoughts that you're searching for into ChatGPT, and it will give you back dialogue and digestible information that it's easy for you to read and understand.
Yep.
Whereas if you go to like Google and you're like churn dash block, it'll list out a bunch of websites and then you got to click on it. No, don't like that one. No, don't like that one. Whereas I could go into ChatGPT and say, hey, what is a churn dash block? And it can give me that information and display it right there and it'll cite its sources.
Yep.
So if you're curious about what we're talking about with prompts, what Ian's talking about is that moment of going into ChatGPT and in the text box, typing in what you want it to do for you.
Yep. So like you said earlier, hey, I have chicken, I have tomato, I have banana. put these items together to make it. I don't know.
Wait, one of these things is not like the other.
Well, hopefully chat would throw out the banana, but it's a way to, I don't know.
You keep talking.
Okay.
I want to see what it says.
You want to see what, okay. All right. So tomato, chicken, and banana. Let's see what it says. I'm curious too. But it's prompting is trying to get to that answer of what you're looking for. And a lot of times you have to be very specific with what you're looking for. You can't just tell an AI, hey, here's a letter that I wrote to my friend, make it better. Like chat doesn't know what you mean by make it better. But if I wrote a letter to my friend and I said, make it more concise, then it'll go in and go, okay, so we're going to reword it so that way it's more understandable and we're not just like going off on tangents or anything like that. What did it come up with?
Oh my gosh.
No way.
Well, and we're going to talk about this in a moment too, because it's something that I definitely want to hit on. But let me read what I put into it. I said, I have tomato, chicken, and banana. What can I make in a crock pot with these items? And its reply was, that's an interesting combo. Definitely doable in a crock pot.
What?
Yeah. Here's a sweet and savory Caribbean-inspired chicken stew idea that uses tomato, chicken, and banana. Yeah.
Is it hallucinating?
No. Like and the ingredients don't sound bad. Like
what are some of the other ingredients?
2 to 3 chicken thighs or breasts, 2 ripe bananas sliced, 1 to 2 diced tomatoes, onion, garlic, curry powder or allspice, cinnamon, salt and pepper to taste, chicken broth, and optional bell peppers, sweet potatoes, or coconut milk for extra depth.
That actually doesn't sound bad.
Listen.
Like, I would genuinely try that.
Listen. I would never have put banana in my crock pot.
That's interesting. We're going to have to try that at some point. Right. We're definitely going to have to try that.
Not this weekend.
No, not this weekend. But I'm going to take a step back because I mentioned hallucination. And people may not know what that is. The reason I asked her if it was hallucinating is because sometimes AI does hallucinate, which is very interesting. There was actually a lawyer who said, hey, I'm working on this case. Help me write my briefing or whatever they call it. Help me write the thing that I'm going to say in front of the judge. Mm-hmm. And so chat said, okay. And it poured out a whole bunch of legal jargon and cited cases. And the lawyer took that without checking them and ran with it. And come to find out, the legal cases that it cited were completely made up, fabricated.
So is hallucinating just the term that we use when ChatGPT is being overly confident but ultra wrong?
Yes, basically. It's it's when literally the AI is hallucinating and saying stuff that is completely wrong.
Yeah.
Or another example of this is images. If people have 6, 7, 8 fingers, have 2 legs, have 5 legs, or like there are images that are created that have multiple appendages that are not really there.
Look, you have a 3rd arm.
Right, exactly. Like that is when AI is hallucinating. And in fact, there has been a fabric designed by AI.
What?
There have been fabrics created with AI, and the way that we could tell was there were multiple appendages phalanges, whatever you want to call
Do you
it.
just fussy cut those out?
I don't know what you do with it. Like the artist went in and just kind of apparently pulled from an image AI and put that on fabric. Maybe this person checked it fully and just I don't know. Like, I don't know how you miss some of that because
I don't know.
some of the toes were multiplied by a lot. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch on this actually. So this was a really good segue. One of the things that I feel like is a good use for ChatGPT, and again, we should talk about technology more broadly.
Sure.
But for ChatGPT and AI, one of the things that I have learned in my experience with it is it always sounds so confident.
Yeah.
So confident. And at first glance, when you're reading through some of it, it might seem like it's working, but there still is effort in validating, proofing, tweaking, and fixing things because if you just take what it gives you at face value, you're not going to get there. And no matter what you throw at ChatGPT, it always comes back positive and what's the word? Like confident, very confident. It's never like, no, that's not going to work. Like if you would have asked me, I would have been like, why are you putting a banana in that recipe? But instead ChatGPT was like, okay, let's do it.
Yep.
Right. So,
and
that might still taste like crud. I don't know. We haven't tried it.
It sounds good. It's interesting.
Oddly enough, it kind of does. I think there's just so much stuff going on in the crock pot that the banana just gets lost.
I think so. I think that's what it is.
So,
but
anyway, that's one of the things that I wanted to mention is I don't think AI, ChatGPT, whatever, is a total escape from the craft or the design process specifically, because you're not going to get AI, at least at this point in time, you're not going to get it to do the piecing for you.
Nope.
You're not going to get it to press the fabric. You're not going to get it. Well, you could get it to cut with the right tools.
Well, yeah, with a plotter, I could see that.
Yeah, you could do a plotter.
Yeah.
They've got some machines out there that measure and cut yardage. And I can't tell you can't quilt it because I can quilt it with automation, but ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, the automation still wants human involvement. I still have to open the software. I still have to pick out my pattern, scale it. I still have to load the quilt. And when it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, I still have to troubleshoot it. Yep. So I don't think AI is taking over the quilting, but there are technology pieces and automations that we can bring into our craft that make it better or more efficient or more modern, right?
Definitely.
So thinking about designing quilts, I used to draw them out on pen with a pen and a notebook all the time. I liked having grid paper, and I would sketch out my blocks and I would sketch out my quilts and I would go with that. And then this was years ago, but then I learned about EQ8. And so I got EQ8, I downloaded it and installed it, but it wasn't super friendly to use. The plus side of it is it was a one-time purchase. Yep. So once you pay for it, it's yours, you're done. So I downloaded it, installed it. It does a phenomenal job for FPP, but I thought EQ8 was going to let me draw my quilt and hit a button, and it was going to take that quilt and give me my cutting instructions, my piecing instructions, and my yardage requirements. So essentially, I thought I was going to be able to draw something, and EQ8 was going to give me a pattern.
Yep.
No, that's not how that works. But it's a tool that I can use to quickly sketch something out.
Yep.
I will say I have gotten away from EQ8 in the past 2 or 3 years, and I have started using Pre-Quilt. It's a website, so I can get to it from my tablet. I can get to it from my computer. It's not a huge memory hog. It doesn't take up any space on my computer, and it's really easy to use. It's almost like designing a quilt in an Excel spreadsheet because you
Yeah.
just have blocks and you're like, da, 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 da. So yeah. But that's another technical
Mhm.
thing that we can use to enhance our craft,
Mhm.
but it's not going to replace the work.
Nope.
Even pre-quilt, while it will give me cutting instructions or its recommended cutting instructions and fabric requirements, it doesn't write the pattern for me. So I can go draw it out and it'll do the math to tell me what my yardage is and it'll tell me what my cutting instructions are, but I still need to test it because it's not always going to be 100%.
Yep. Yep.
So
It's interesting to me too because, by the way, Josh from Lifting and Stitching uses
Yeah.
pre-quilt as well.
oh, I love
Yep.
pre-quilt. You know,
Um,
one of these days
Yeah.
just one of these days, like I I want it. I don't know what I want to do one of these days, but I love pre-quilt. So
Yeah.
if you're looking for something, it's relatively affordable. I pay $100 a year for a subscription. If you're interested, check it out. Highly recommend.
It's interesting to me too because when I first started my quilting journey, when I first joined the Fort Worth Modern Quilt Guild, it was my second meeting to attend ever.
Yeah.
And Libs Elliott was the guest.
Oh, wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because the first meeting was okay. I enjoyed it, but they were talking about how to put a quilt sleeve onto
yeah.
a quilt, and that was kind of the topic du jour. And I was like, well, I don't know if I really want to keep coming back. I don't know. But then Libs Elliott, she gave a talk that day, trunk show and talk and all that, and she talked about how she designed her quilt tops, and I feel like she was ahead of the curve of everybody else. She was ahead of AI and everything else because she used code to generate her quilt tops designs.
Yes.
So she was actually going in, her friend, her husband's friend or somebody, she obviously tells this story way better than I do. Long story short, she knew somebody who was able to generate code. And then she could go in and change the parameters of that code, and it would generate an image of a quilt top that she could then turn into a pattern.
I like it.
And
keep talking.
okay,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
that's right. And at that time, I was working on a program at the Science Museum that I was working at that was a mobile makerspace where I was going out into the community teaching coding, teaching robotics, teaching all the things on a makerspace has. And that really spoke to me because I was like, oh my gosh, I love this whole, getting to use code to generate quilt tops and stuff. So I was really, really invested. And as soon as I saw her talk, I was like, okay, I'm going to join the guild and all that kind of stuff. But it was really fascinating listening to her talk about using the code to generate, and she was able to like change colors and shapes. I've never done one of her quilts. I have her pattern, and I just have never had time to actually do a quilt yet, but I will at some point.
Yeah, I got really excited when you started talking about that because that's actually something that Jason has challenged me to do, and he wants me to do a video on it. He wants me to go into ChatGPT, have it design a quilt, and then make it.
Yeah.
He wants me to do that, and I keep saying, yeah, that'd be really cool, and then I always forget about it. So when you just said that, I was like, oh yeah, that thing.
I need to do that. Well, I have two. I actually have gone into, I don't remember if it was Chat or which one. Oh, no, it was Facebook. Facebook Meta has a image generator. And I asked it to put me to dream me in front of a prize-winning quilt, and it drew up a quilt, and several of them it hallucinated and created some really weird images.
It was tripping, yo.
It was like my arm was going through the quilt, and it was bad. But there is one quilt that I was like, oh, I might be able to do something like that. Like, that's kind of interesting. But again, we get into, like, if I want to enter that into a show, how...
I think you could still... I don't think you need to cite it, right? Like, because... All right, if you're out and about, Chewy's, the Mexican restaurant, I don't know if all of them are this way, but the one out by here has this tiled floor. And it has all of these little diamond wedges on the floor that are all going in the same direction, except every so often, on purpose, they have taken one of those tiles and turned it. So it kind of breaks up the monotony. And I took a picture of it one time a while ago and I posted it. I was like, obviously a quilter did not design this floor, right? But I could make that. And so if I made it, would I really need to go in and be like, what's my cited source? The floor at Chewy's. Like, I don't think so. I don't think you need to go that far. I think the spirit of it is, if you are taking somebody else's artistry or product or craft and you are using it to incite your or inspire you to make your own thing, I think that's the point of it. I think if you're walking through the portrait gallery, the National Portrait Gallery, and you see a beautiful painting and you go back home and you want to recreate it with fabric, I think that needs to be cited. Absolutely. Right? If you do a Van Gogh version of that painting, I still think you need to cite it. But there does become a fine line between what are you going to cite and what are you not going to cite?
Yeah.
Because there is no, I don't think there is any way we will, there's always a finite number of possibilities, right? You can only do so many things with squares, triangles, and rectangles before you start to make things look like somebody else's. It's just like music. There's only so much stuff you can do with those notes. You're going to eventually start making things that look or sound like something else that's out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as you are true to yourself and know that when you are drawing that quilt up, you were drawing it. You were playing around with color. You were playing around with shapes, and you came up with what you liked. For example, the quilt on your lap, right? You're very excited about this because, as you said at the beginning of the episode, you designed it, you did all that stuff. Now, what if I told you, Ian, all that is 4 patches with sashing?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, like, technically, you didn't design a 4-patch block.
Yep.
But you took that element to build out a vision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I don't think you need to go completely off the deep end, but I do think if you're going to borrow somebody else's work to inspire you, not to recreate their stuff, but to inspire you to do something, you should give them credit.
Absolutely. But I think that's the big kind of, I don't want to say controversy, but the big discussion that's happening right now in quilt shows is we haven't quite hit the point when AI generated quilts have like started to enter into quilt shows. I think there's probably like 1 or 2 that have started happening, but I think that's the discussion that organizers and show creators are kind of talking about, because I do know of a show that they've put in their description, like, you have to list your source even if it's AI generated.
Wow. Well,
so
yeah.
it's kind of interesting because, again, like, a lot of the elements in an AI come from it has to have a source in order to create something from them. So it's interesting, and it's a discussion that's definitely going to become more prevalent as the years go on, and as more AI becomes more deeply involved and integrated into not only our art form but just our everyday lives. Because seems like every day there's a new AI that pops up in my television and my phone and my everything. So
it's taking over the world.
Oh
Ian.
gosh. No iRobot, please. Yeah, so it's an interesting discussion, and something that I think is going to take time to figure out, where do we put the guardrails on.
And I wonder if, though, the show that you've seen where they list that, I wonder, I just want to go back to the spirit of what they're trying to do, right? Is the spirit of what they're trying to do capturing credit for other work that inspired this, right?
Right.
So it's not necessarily you use ChatGPT to design something. It might be more of, well, you asked ChatGPT for something, and even though you didn't research it and look it up, it went out and found this other piece of work by this other artist, and it used that. But the good thing about it is the system does cite its sources. So if you ask it to design a quilt, you can look at where it pulled that information from, and you can maybe you say I used AI and it cited these sources, and you could list those out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Definitely. It's and I don't disagree with you. I don't know exactly how I feel about like having to cite every single source for AI. Like
I'll tell you right now, if a show wants me to cite all that stuff, I just won't enter the show. Like, it's too much work.
Well, and I don't disagree with you. I think I think you're right talking about the spirit of going, saying, oh yeah, I had AI help me design this, but a lot of times, again, talking about the quilt that I had the meta AI work on for me, I would still have to go in and figure out how to create that.
Yes.
How does that?
Yes. 100%.
How do those pieces fit together? How do I? And when you look up close on the design that came out, there's definitely things that don't work physically, like with fabric and physics and measurements. Like that doesn't work like that. So I would have to go in and interpret what it was saying and figure out how to actually make that happen in physical world.
Yep. When I'm drawing out a quilt, honestly, most of the time, I'm actually not even starting with an idea of what I want. I'm kind of just like, here's a quilt block. What happens if? And I just start tweaking or rotating or moving or putting it up next to something else to see what secondary design pops up. And it's really easy to do in pre-quilt because you can just plop it into the box, right? So that makes it a little bit easier, but yeah, like, I still have to figure out how to put it together. To your point, it's the same thing. I'm just trying to think through, like, if I had sat down for this particular show that you're talking about, if I had sat down and I opened up the block library in pre-quilt and I pulled out like a sawtooth star and a friendship star and a churn dash, and I just used those 3 block elements to build out a quilt, or just used half square triangles and rectangles, do I need to cite that I used pre-quilt to draw it out?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Do I need to cite that I used Crayola and grid paper to sketch it out by hand? Like, there does become a point where it's overkill.
Sure.
And I wonder, I don't know, because I don't even know what quilt show it was, but I wonder if perhaps that rule is in there because maybe the person that came up with the rules, maybe the show chair, doesn't understand that AI did not take the work out of it, right? Maybe it's just the spirit of making sure that if an artist was inadvertently credited by way of all the things that are in the interwebs, they're getting some form of credit, and perhaps it's maybe a little bit of misinformation where they think that if you use a system like EQ8 or Prequilt or AI, you're not doing any of the work because it's done it for you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all very interesting. This is a very interesting discussion, talking it through and thinking about it. And I know y'all are going to have lots of thoughts on this that we're going to receive comments on. So
yeah, but you can only leave comments for us if you run them through ChatGPT. Like,
I don't know about that.
I think there needs to be, go to ChatGPT and put in, give me a nice comment to leave on Becca and Ian's video. And if it gives you anything that sounds negative, don't post it.
Well, and that's an interesting thing too, because I've noticed that depending on how you literally address ChatGPT is how it responds to you.
Oh yeah.
And this is an important rule about AI, is if you put trash in, you're going to get trash out. It's like what you put in is what you're going to get out. So I'm always very nice when I talk to ChatGPT.
Do you type please?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Do you tell it thank you?
I do.
I do too.
I do. Yep.
Like, hey, please, could you perhaps maybe consider?
Right.
Although I will say in some of the recent conversations that I've had with it, just doing some things, I've gotten a little bit more direct. I'm like, no, that's wrong. This. So,
well, it's also interesting too, because as I've been doing research on it and working with it, I've also discovered that like chat always wants to give positive results.
It does.
It doesn't ever want to be negative. And if you want to get critical feedback from it, like let's say I wrote a paper.
You have to tell it.
I have to tell it,
Yep.
I need critical feedback, but then that's the interesting thing too, is it'll go through and it'll list 5 positive things and then it'll find 5 negative things. So it tries to balance it out, and you have to specifically go in and say, you don't have to create a balanced list of positive and critical feedback. You can be honest. And again, it's all about that prompting, all about what that prompting is. And that's why I want to get better at that and become certified. I think that would be so much fun to get certified in figuring out that prompt. You want to know what the most successful prompt is for me so far?
Who is the off kilter crafter, Ian?
Well, it's actually very kind to me and tells me exactly who I am. No, my most successful prompt and I use this on almost every single prompt I give it, is please ask any clarifying questions until you are 95% confident in your response. And that has been one of the most successful prompts, because it'll come back to me and say, okay, here are the questions that I need answered in order to successfully complete this.
That's hilarious, because when I feed stuff into ChatGPT, and I'm just going to look to see if it did it this time, it gives me a ton of information and ends with a question to refine it. So it must have learned that I just want the answer right now. See, like literally the recipe. So I pull up the recipe that I did. It gives me the recipe. It does everything. And then at the end it says, would you like a spicier version or something more savory? Like, it's already asking me clarifying questions.
It is. It does ask some clarifying questions, but when I use the prompt, it actually goes through, like a lot of times it'll ask me 5 or 6 questions, not just a single question. So all the areas that it needs clarification on, it'll go in and say, okay, here are the areas that I need clarified. And then it'll come back to me and, I put all that stuff in, and then it goes, okay, great. And it uses that information to finish out whatever task I've asked it to do. And it does, at the end of almost every single one, it does still come back to me after it's asked its questions. It'll come back to me and say, hey, how does this sound? Let me know if we need to tweak this somehow or whatever. So it does kind of come back with those. But when I ask it for that 95% clarity question, it does tend to really get into the heart of what it needs in order for it to be a successful prompt.
Okay.
So it's a helpful one. I've used it a lot.
Well, Ian, I think we need to take on a challenge.
Okay.
And I'm being honest with this because Jason's going to want me to do it anyway. What if each of us, and maybe this is the kickoff, because we've kind of talked about this a little bit before, but what if we have a 3-part video series, or however long, we can discuss the details later, but what if we each do a challenge with each other where we have to feed into ChatGPT some form of information to design a wall quilt, because we don't need to do anything big.
Right.
To design a wall quilt that cannot exceed a certain dimension set.
Sure.
And then when it gives us back the generated image or the generated design, we have to figure out how to put it together. And then at the end, we can show what our prompt was, what ChatGPT rendered for us, and what we made. Was it a fail or was it a hail. I don't know. Like I was trying to think of a like
A
yay or
rhyming.
nay.
Right, yeah, right,
Like,
exactly.
so I think that would be really cool. And I think that could be a really neat story and submission for QuiltCon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea a
think we
lot.
should. Yeah,
I think we
like,
should.
I think, I mean, we may have already started by the time you're listening to this.
Right, exactly. Who knows?
Check
Who
out our
knows?
YouTube channels.
Yeah. No, I think we should do that. I think that would be a lot of fun, and especially if we, yeah.
But I like, honestly, I don't even know that it should be 3 videos, because who wants to drag that out?
I
Like,
don't know.
what if the whole arc of the story is just in one video?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, like, it's happening. I don't know when the video's happening, but it's happening.
I don't know. What do you think, though? Because I have the feeling, and the reason I have this feeling, I'll back up a half step.
I got a feeling.
Woo! What? So the Bernina 990 has come out
good
recently,
Lord.
Right? And it
Sweet
has,
baby Jesus.
I know, that thing is as much as a car.
Uh,
But it has all the bells and whistles. It has the ginormous hoop. It has the camera in it to figure out like where everything is, take pictures so that way you can drag and drop and do all the things, blah, blah, blah. How long before we start seeing AI pop up in our sewing machines?
For me, I sew in a 1951 Singer 301. It would take an act of God to put any computer in that.
True.
I mean, you're not wrong. And in some ways, it's kind of already there, right? Like, think of a standard computerized machine. I
Mhm.
have a Baby Lock Aria. That machine I can program to save my settings to be a certain way. So when I turn it on, it automatically does things for me. I can tell it if I want the presser foot to automatically come up and the needle to stay down. I can tell it to tie off or backstitch at the start and end anytime I cut a thread, anytime I take my first stitch. I can tell it to do all of that. And so while it's maybe not AI thinking for me, maybe it's more in the terms of robotics, it kind of still is automation. It's still that technology.
Yeah, I think that the distinguishing factor
Is the ability to think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Like, if I could take Pro Stitcher up a
Mhm.
notch, right? And I could load a quilt in and say, all right, this is the dimensions, right? Okay, I lay out my area. I want all over edge to edge quilting design featuring roses.
Yeah.
And it could give me like 3 like whatever, and then do the whole thing
Yeah.
and advance the quilt and everything. Listen, if it gets to that point, first of all, I'm probably investing. But
Right.
if it gets to that point, like, at what point does it become a craft or just a mass-produced item?
I don't know, because I think with, and my idea was you kind of mostly were there. I don't know about advancing,
Well,
but like,
listen, I'm just like, my head goes to, if I can make technology do A and B, then I get super excited, and I also want to do C and
right,
D,
right,
right? Like,
yeah,
and we might not be there yet, but I get really excited about the technical stuff. I love it. It just,
Mhm.
all of the different things that you can do with it, it just makes me really excited. So I know we're not there, right? Maybe the first step is, here's the dimensions that I
Mhm.
need to quilt. This is the thing that I'm going for.
Now draw the design.
Draw a design out.
Draw
right?
a design that, and the cool thing would be like there would be no 2 designs that are the same.
Yeah,
because
you could like source different designs
Right.
and merge them point to point, whatever the case may be. And maybe like, I'm going to be taking, and by the time this airs, I will have already taken.
Yeah.
But I will be taking this weekend a Pro Stitcher class, a Pro Stitch designer class,
Mhm.
where I get to draw out my own designs, and I'll be interested to see, after I get familiar with that software a little bit, is there a way that I could have AI help me sketch out a design and then
Yeah.
plop it into the designer?
Yeah,
That's an idea.
It is an idea. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of directions that this is going to go in, and it's going to be interesting to see what directions, because I mean, we've got freaking video projectors in sewing machines now.
Oh yeah.
From the brother machines have a projector that can project stitches and lines and all sorts of different things.
Laser.
We got the laser. So we've got we've got the video projectors, we've got the video cameras, we've got all sorts of technology in those very expensive machines. But it's going to be interesting to see where, because it's coming. AI is going to be in machines at some point.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's so funny to me how everything started for me personally, just thinking about the technology, right? So Jason's kind of hit the nail on the head with an answer, and I'll get to it in just a second. But often I've been asked, why did you start a YouTube channel? And the easiest thing that I could go to is, I like quilting and I want to make videos about it. But Jason hit the nail on the head. We talked about this a few years ago, and I was like, oh my goodness, you're right. He's like, no, I don't think it's just about making the video for you. I think it's 3 things. And I was like, okay. He said, number 1, you like to play with technology. This lets you play with technology. Number 2, you like to be creative. This lets you be creative. And number 3, you like to teach, and this lets you teach. And I was like, oh, like it clicked for me in that moment. And so as I was starting out my quilting journey, I started out with computerized machines, and I wanted the better one and the better one and the better one. And eventually it has shifted to a Singer 301 that I picked up on Facebook Marketplace. It was built in the 50s and I got for $50. And that's the machine that I have been sewing on predominantly for the past year. Now, I do have a Juki set up so that if I'm making something with a lot of bulk, I can get it through there. I still have the baby lock. I never power it on. I don't use it. And that was the most expensive of the 2 machines. However, on the other side of it, the piecing is all done on this older machine that takes anything I throw at her. But on my long arm, it's all about the technology. It is all about the technology. I don't want to do that. I want to play with the tech. And that's part of what makes the long arm so exciting to me. And maybe that's because there is absolutely no technology in the 301.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. I think you're right. Well,
this has got to be probably the shortest episode, because I feel like we're at a point where we're just like, okay, and that's all I got to say about that.
Well, at least for the time being, because there's more to come in the future, obviously.
Yeah.
But we're at this point, we're at the cusp of what the future is going to bring us. And it's just going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 5, 10, 15 years. Yeah.
I'm kind of excited to see what wall quilts will come up with.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
I think so too.
But I got to tell you, I've had this idea in my head for a couple of years. Jason's been singing the praises of ChatGPT for me for years. By the way, he is a developer. And did you know that most of the time when he's writing code, he goes to ChatGPT, gets the code, and then has to understand how to take it, tweak it, read it, understand it, comprehend it. So that's, although it's nothing to do with quilting, but it's the same thing in the professional world. ChatGPT is not replacing you.
No.
AI is not replacing you.
No.
It's not taking over your job. It's giving you tools to make you more efficient, but you still have to understand how to do the thing. For example, I use ChatGPT to help me write emails all the time. So I will I will use it to help me try to say in an eloquent manner what's in my head. And that process of writing a well-written email with all of the details that need to be in there, example, if I'm writing one for work or something or whatever, that process takes me 15, 20 minutes. Whereas it could have taken me a couple hours to get everything down the way I needed it to be down. There could be some days where it feels like the only thing I did was write an email.
Yeah.
And it's now with this technology, I'm sending out communication that's good, it's clear, it's precise, it's not offending anybody, and it kind of takes the emotion out of it too. So if I have a hard message to deliver or hard conversation I have to have, those prompts and allowing it to give me my response in that conversation or in that email takes the emotion away from it. And I'm not as stressed out about, oh, did I say something wrong? Because it's not me, right? Yeah. Anyway, all that to say, whether it comes into the quilting world, it stays where it's at, wherever it is, just understand that nothing you do with AI, at least at this point, maybe in 5 years it's different, it's never going to be foolproof, and it's never going to replace you and what you have to bring to the table.
It's another tool to use. It's not a replacement. It is another tool to utilize to figure out how best to navigate, I guess.
You know what I want is the AI that edits videos.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to edit videos anymore.
Oh.
Like, it's part of the appeal of live streams. I just hit the button, I do the thing, and then I end.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, this wasn't perfect.
But it was generated by AI. No, I'm kidding.
Exterminate. Delete.
What is it, Homestar Runner? Deleted.
I was thinking Doctor Who. That was where I was going.
Okay. We live in two different universes, Ian.
Yep, it's true.
And that's all I got to say about that.
Yep.
Oh, that's a Forrest Gump reference too. Yep. Man,
go ahead.
I just, this was such an interesting topic. I'd love to know, like, did we bore you? Did we lose you in this journey? Let us know. You can leave comments. If you're listening to this on podcast, please leave us a review. 5 stars are great. If you're not going to leave 5 stars, maybe don't leave one. I don't know. I'm trying to get the podcast audio up and going. So,
and we also have a form on both of our websites. You can go to sewbecca.com and suggest topics. We'd love to hear from you. You can also go to the brand new offkiltercrafterian.com.
Was it built by AI?
No, it was not. It was built by a Becca AI.
Well, I mean, technically it was AI. You were like, I want it blue. And I was like, no. So.
But yeah, on both of our websites, we do have a form that you can fill out and suggest topics.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Also, if you have guests that you would like to hear or see on the podcast, let us know. We've got a couple of those already lined up and a few more in the wings that we need to get worked out. So we're really excited to bring stories and conversations to you. And I think our first guest, we've already spilled the beans. It's going to be Rachel from Breaking the Blocks.
Yep.
By the way, thank you guys so much for all of the support that you have shown her. If you haven't found her podcast, she's got it on all of the podcast platforms, but now she also has the video portion of that same interview on YouTube. So you can go watch her have a conversation with somebody else. Yeah. And she has now gotten to over 3,000 subscribers, which was a huge milestone for her. She's so excited about that. So if you haven't checked her out yet, please do. She's going to be our first guest. And I think I'm trying to go through in my head when this episode drops. I'm not sure if her episode drops the next time we get together or the time after.
It'll be soon.
It'll be soon. It'll be very soon because we'll be talking to her very soon.
Yes. So excited to have her on.
And I have
podcast.
No idea. Like, I'm just going to be sitting here. Could you please read the phone book?
She has such a lovely voice.
She's so good at navigating conversations without taking over the conversation that I almost worry in some respect, maybe it won't happen, that she's going to just give us like a couples therapy session.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine?
So tell me more, Ian. How does that make you feel? When Becca touches your Tula pink fabric, do you really get upset?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to have that conversation with her, because I don't think I'm going to be able to do for her what she has done
No.
for everybody else.
No.
That's not my skill set. But I promise you, I will be able to make her laugh.
Yep, definitely.
So there's that.
It'll be lovely. It'll be a lot of fun.
It'll be lovely.
Yeah. Lovely.
Lovely.
Evening, governor. That's about as good as my accent gets.
Yeah. I can't do any of it. Hey, but you know what, Ian?
What?
I'm going to spin the bottle on you. Or spin the table, I guess is the better way.
What?
If I would have kept going with that, it would have made sense. I'm going to turn the tables on you.
Oh, okay.
This podcast is finished.
But it definitely wasn't perfect. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We really appreciate your support, your love. Thanks for liking the podcast, downloading the podcast, and of course, heading over to YouTube, leaving us comments and all that kind of stuff. We'll see you all again very soon.
Do I say something? Oh, yeah. Bye. See ya.
Bye.